All right, so today we're doing a deep dive. And you know what that means, right? We take a fascinating topic, gather up a whole bunch of sources, and really try to pull out those key insights just for you.
Yeah, it's like giving everyone a cheat sheet to sound super smart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the topic we're tackling today is, well, it's a big one. It's Frank Lloyd Wright.
Oh, yeah, one of
Isn't
the
it?
biggest names in architecture, right?
Absolutely. And we've got some fantastic sources to work with. We've got information straight from the Frank Lloyd Wright Trust, which is like getting the inside scoop,
Right.
you know?
Oh, that's gold right there.
It is. And we've also got his Wikipedia page, which, sometimes Wikipedia can be a little iffy, but it can also be a treasure trove of like quirky details.
Yeah, sometimes the footnotes are the best part.
So true. So for this deep dive, we're really going to try to uncover what made Frank Lloyd Wright so brilliant, and especially his ability to blend nature and architecture.
Yeah, his buildings, they're not just like on the landscape, they're almost like a part of it.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I think that's one of the things that makes him so timeless. Even today, his work feels so fresh and relevant.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll be exploring some of his key projects, the ones you absolutely have to see. Like if you're ever in the area, you have to go there.
Right. And we'll also be sharing some fun facts about the man himself. Because Frank Lloyd Wright, he was a bit of a character.
He was larger than life, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah. And speaking of larger than life, I think the perfect place to start our exploration of Frank Lloyd Wright's connection with nature is Fallingwater.
Oh, Fallingwater. Now that's a house.
It's more than just a house. It's an icon.
Yeah.
Completed in 1937. It's just this incredible example of Wright's philosophy of organic architecture.
And what does that mean exactly? Organic architecture.
Well, it's not just about like using natural materials. It's about designing in a way that's in harmony with the environment, in a way that respects nature and enhances it.
So it's not just about the building itself, it's about how the building interacts with its surroundings.
Exactly. And Fallingwater, it's not just near nature. It's practically embracing nature.
I mean, come on, it's built over a waterfall, a 20-foot waterfall in Mill Run, Pennsylvania.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Like stepping out onto your balcony and having a waterfall right there?
And that was intentional, right? Right? Wanted the people living there to feel completely immersed in nature.
Yeah, like the sound of the water, the feeling of the mist. It's all part of the experience of living in Fallingwater.
Makes you think about how we design our own spaces, doesn't it? Like, how often do we really consider the natural world?
Right. It's like we're so focused on being inside that we forget about the outside.
And the design itself, I mean, those cantilevered balconies and terraces, they're just incredible.
They really are. Like they're jutting out over the falls, almost like they're defying gravity.
And he used local sandstone for vertical elements, which really grounds the house in its surroundings.
Yeah, and then those smooth, horizontal concrete elements.
Yeah.
They create this amazing contrast, this tension between the natural and the man-made.
It's almost like the house is growing right out of the rock.
And speaking of growing, let's talk about the budget. Because building a masterpiece over a waterfall, well, that doesn't come cheap.
No, not at all. The original cost was $155,000, which included an $8,000 architect's fee.
Oh, wow. So in today's money, that's like, what, a gazillion dollars?
Something like that. Adjusted for inflation, that's roughly $3,390,000 in 2024, with the architect's fee being around $175,000.
See it? A gazillion. And it wasn't just the cost that raised some eyebrows. There's that famous story about the structural engineers who were, well, let's just say they weren't entirely convinced about the design.
Oh, yeah, they were a little worried, weren't they? Especially about those cantilevers.
Yeah, but like, Mr. Wright, are you sure this is going to work?
And being right, he was like, trust me, I'm Frank Lloyd Wright.
And the contractor, God bless him, he secretly added extra steel to those concrete elements just to be on the safe side.
I mean, can you blame him? But later structural analysis showed that, yeah, those engineers had a point.
They did. And there have been some pretty extensive restoration efforts over the years, including adding steel supports and using a technique called post-tensioning, which is basically like tightening cables inside the concrete to give it more strength.
So yeah, maybe a little extra steel wasn't such a bad idea after all.
Okay, so from the rugged beauty of Fallingwater, let's fast forward a few years and head to the urban jungle of New York City for another one of Wright's masterpieces, the Guggenheim Museum.
Oh yeah, the Guggenheim. Talk about a contrast in styles.
Right. Fallingwater is all about blending into nature, and the Guggenheim is like, well, it's like This futuristic spaceship landed in the middle of Manhattan.
But it still has that organic feel, doesn't it? That spiral shape. It's like a seashell or something.
It really does. And that spiral, it's not just for looks, it's actually part of the way you experience the art.
So explain this to me. How does it work?
So you take an elevator to the top, and then you slowly walk down this continuous ramp, and the art is all displayed along the walls as you descend.
So it's like a journal, like you're unfolding the story of art as you go down.
Exactly. And that's so different from the traditional way of experiencing art, where you go from one room to the next.
Makes you appreciate how the architecture of a space can really influence your whole experience, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So, we've talked about these amazing buildings, but what about the man behind the designs? What about Frank Lloyd Wright himself?
Well, let's just say he was a fascinating character.
Oh, yeah, full of surprises. Like, did you know that he was a little, shall we say, flexible with his birth year?
What do you mean?
So his birth certificate says he was born in 1867, but he always insisted that he was born in 1869.
2 years younger. I mean, I get wanting to shave off a few years, but two.
I know. Maybe he thought 1869 sounded more, I don't know, more architecturally significant.
Who knows? And it's interesting. His mother seems to have had a pretty big influence on him, even from a young age.
Oh, yeah. She decorated his nursery with engravings of English cathedrals. Talk about setting the bar high.
Seriously. But it wasn't just the pictures. She also bought him these toys called Froebel gifts.
Froebel gifts. What are those?
They were these sets of geometrically shaped wooden blocks that were part of this new, innovative kindergarten curriculum.
And Wright himself actually credited these toys with shaping his design approach.
Wow, so those simple wooden blocks could have been the inspiration for some of the most iconic buildings in the world.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, who knew that playtime could be so influential?
And speaking of influential, his time working for Adler and Sullivan was pretty formative.
Oh, absolutely. That's where he really started to hone his skills and develop his own style.
He had a lot of respect for Louis Sullivan, the head of the firm. He even called him Liebermeister, which is German for dear master.
It was a real mentorship, but it wasn't without its drama. Wright, being Wright, he couldn't resist taking on some side projects.
Side projects like what?
Houses. He designed houses in secret, even though his contract with Adler and Sullivan forbade it.
He was like an architectural rebel.
He was. And he later called these houses his bootlegged houses.
So sneaky. But how did he get away with it?
Well, he didn't, actually. Sullivan ended up recognizing one of these bootlegged houses, and let's just say he wasn't too pleased.
So what happened?
Well, depending on who you ask,
Right.
either quit in a huff or he was promptly fired.
Either way, it sounds like a dramatic exit.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
But you know what? That split actually paved the way for him to start his own independent practice.
So it was a blessing in disguise.
Totally. He set up shop in Steinway Hall, which was like this hub of architectural innovation at the time.
And that's where the Prairie School movement really started to take off.
Right. And Wright was right there at the forefront, pushing the boundaries of design with his horizontal lines, open floor plans, and emphasis on natural materials.
And it wasn't just in America. He also designed buildings in Japan, like the Imperial Hotel, which famously survived the Great Kanto earthquake.
Yeah, that was a real testament to his engineering skills. The hotel was designed to sway with the tremors instead of collapsing.
Pretty amazing, considering the technology they had back then.
And he was really into Japanese art, too, especially ukiyo-e wood block prints.
Oh, I love those.
They're beautiful, aren't they? And right, he wasn't just a casual admirer. He was a serious collector and dealer. He even organized exhibitions and wrote a book about them.
Wow, he was really passionate about it.
He was. He even said he was enslaved by them.
Yeah.
And, with Wright, it wasn't all about art and architecture. He was also known for being quite outspoken, shall we say.
Oh, yeah, he definitely wasn't afraid to ruffle some feathers.
Like, for example, he refused to join the American Institute of Architects.
Why not?
He thought it was a harbor of refuge for the incompetent and a form of refined gangsterism.
Ouch. Those are some fighting words.
Tell me about it. But that was Frank Lloyd Wright. He was a visionary, a rebel, and definitely one of a kind.
So looking back on his life and work, what do you think is his most enduring legacy?
I think it's his ability to create buildings that are not just beautiful, but also in harmony with nature.
Yeah, his organic architecture, it's more than just a style, it's a whole philosophy.
And I think that philosophy is more relevant today than ever as we become more aware of the impact we're having on the environment.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the big picture. It's about how we design our own homes, our workspaces, our cities.
Right. It's about thinking about how we can live in a way that's more sustainable and more connected to nature.
And Wright's work shows us that it's possible, that we can create beautiful, functional spaces that also respect the natural world.
Exactly. And you know what? His legacy is officially recognized on a global scale. Back in 2019, UNESCO designated 8 of his buildings as World Heritage Sites.
Wow, World Heritage Sites, that's a huge honor.
It is, and Fallingwater and the Guggenheim Museum are both on that list.
So these buildings, they're not just important to American architecture, they're important to the world.
They are. And I think that's a testament to Wright's vision and his lasting impact.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want listeners to take away from it?
I want them to remember that Frank Lloyd Wright was more than just an architect. He was a pioneer, an innovator, and a true original.
And his work continues to inspire us to think differently about how we live in the world.
Exactly. Thanks for listening, and remember to keep looking up.
Always keeps looking up.
Yeah, because you never know what amazing things you might find.
Just like Frank Lloyd Wright.
Exactly.
And hey, who knows? Maybe one of you listening out there will be the next Frank Lloyd Wright.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, maybe one of you will design the next Fallingwater or the next Guggenheim.
The possibilities are endless.
All right, well, on that note, we'll wrap it up here. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.